Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Dave Gordon, and I'm running for Congress in New York's 22nd Congressional District. I'm a small business owner, a former Oneida County legislator, and a millennial, someone who's very, very concerned about the state of our nation and the direction in which our nation is going. As a Oneida County legislator, I voted, in many instances, I voted to reduce our county sales tax. I felt that government had become empowered too much to the point where it was, not being fiscally responsible. I never voted for a property tax increase because I felt, again, government has overstepped its bounds when it comes to the financial future of my generation, your generation, and our future generation. I am not also the candidate of choice for the powers that be in Washington. One of those reasons is because I am not a millionaire. Everybody aspires to make money in life, but then there's a point at which your aspirations start to look more like special interests in politics. And I think we need less millionaires in Washington. I think we need more common people who support common principles of people. Also, when I was an Oneida County legislator, I introduced legislation. It was the first county, a municipality in New York State, to pass our national motto, "In God We Trust," which we prominently now display in Oneida County. I thought that it was very important for the people of my district and all districts throughout New York State to realize that we as legislators make deliberations, and not so in our own interest, but in the interest of everyone. And I think that oftentimes a lot of our people in elected office forget that. I'm also pro-Second Amendment, which a lot of people find that confusing being a Democrat. Well, we all live here in New York's 22nd Congressional District. My feeling has always been the world is becoming a very, very different place than it once was. And we're overextended financially on providing security for each and every single person that may come in the face of danger. And I believe that police officers should not be our first line of defense. Rather, we should be our first line of defense. And I myself am a licensed pistol carrier. And in many instances, I carry it because I feel that I have a responsibility to protect myself, my neighbors, my family, and my possessions, like many of you may feel the same way. So, again, people will question, will say, but you're a Democrat. Well, I think we can still uphold our principles. We've done a great job as time has evolved to create amendments to our Constitution which have addressed current situations and situations moving forward. I have also always been an advocate of passing term limits in our government. I feel that many people of power on both sides of the aisle have become too powerful and have lost their way. As a congressman, I will propose a 28th Amendment to the Constitution calling on term limits for our elected officials in Washington. I think that it's very, very important that we get some of the people out of Washington that have become a part of the problem rather than a part of the solution. My candidacy is addressing many things. One of them is the Affordable Health Care Act and the impact that it's had on the people of this great district. The Affordable Health Care Act is neither affordable nor does it provide the quality health care that we're all looking for. People have looked at my health care plan and said that it's a pretty good compromise between what the Republicans are offering and what the Democrats are looking for or looking at. My plan would increase the current threshold to provide people who truly can't afford health insurance with health insurance. On the other hand, it would open up the state boundaries and state borders that exist, creating a much more competitive healthcare system for America, in which you have more companies involved. Oftentimes it's criticized saying, well, New York sets the standards for healthcare, and that healthcare is, the greatest thing here in New York State. Well, I believe it can be a great attribute throughout the country, but we should allow the several hundreds of insurance companies to be a part of that process and not just the 4 or 5 in New York State. my candidacy wants to address several of the issues. As a small business owner, I understand what our farmers are going through with the price of the milk prices. I understand how hard it is every day to make workers' compensation and New York State disability payments, and all of the issues that surround it with regulation. I think there's too much regulation in government. I think that we have great opportunity to move this nation forward, but it is going to be by creating a system that is conducive to raising up small businesses. Small business has always been the backbone of our country, and it always will be. But we have to get rid of all of the issues and red tape that keeps small businesses from moving forward. And I'll do that as a congressman. I will not hold an allegiance to any special interests or special parties out there that feel as if they can manipulate the system. In my own home county of Oneida County, I lost my endorsement for the Democratic line. And one of the reasons was because Washington was calling every person in the district saying, we need Dave's opponent, we need her. We need to get her here into office. And I don't think that that's going to help us when these people aren't advocating for themselves. So again, I will do everything to defend the roadmap that we've come to know, known as the Constitution, implement some new amendments that address a lot of the political corruption in Washington while maintaining the ability for our small businesses and our communities to grow. And so I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this evening, and I hope that you will consider my candidacy and not so much look at party labels, Democrat or Republican, but really base it on the issues. And you can visit my website, davegordonforcongress.com. On there it will give you my platform agenda. My opponent for my primary doesn't have a platform, and that's concerning. Because when you run for Congress, you run on ideas, and you run to implement new things for the people of your district. And I think that it's very, very important that we motivate people through the process. I'm very, very excited that Republicans and Democrats will both come out in record numbers, I believe, this year and vote here in New York, in New York's 22nd Congressional District. And I know that everyone here will make the right choice. So thank you again, and I appreciate seeing all of you on the campaign trail. Thank you.
Mr. Gordon, you have stated in an interview on February 5th that you support single-payer health care. The Veterans Administration is government single-payer and has increased the number of vets waiting for medical attention since the publicized scandal. How can voters be assured that your support of single-payer will be a benefit given the problems we already see?
Thank you. Yes, I am a supporter of a single-payer system. I believe that in this country, health care should not be a privilege to a privileged few people. I think that we have a system set up here that we need to move forward with. Like I said previously in my statements, that the Affordable Health Care Act is neither affordable nor does it create a standard of care that's conducive to a good health care system. So my feelings are that there are going to be many incremental changes, and we've gone through this as we've gone through in the past with the Social Security Administration. We make these changes, and one day, I'm not saying tomorrow, I'm not saying next year, it may be even longer than 5 years down the road, but that we create a healthcare system that looks at people as not based on their socioeconomics of it, but really based on the fact that they're American. And that we need to provide healthcare coverage for those, again, that cannot afford it, and provide better quality services for those who need it the most.
Thank you.
Thank you. Be careful.
Next up, Mr. Gordon, pro-choice or pro-life?
Well, people ask me that question all the time. And in my own home, I would be pro-life. But I also understand, as someone who is advocating on behalf of everyone in this country, that we have to allow women to decide what they're going to do with their body in a medical fashion. And oftentimes there's extenuating circumstances. So I feel that I am pro-choice when it comes to a legislative standpoint. But in my own home, I would advocate pro-life. And I think that that is just the common sense practice of anyone who goes to Washington or any legislative position that they have to advocate on behalf of everyone, not just a select few.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gordon, to what extent do you approve or disapprove of how the United States has been dispensing foreign aid?
I think that's a pretty generic question. I think that in the right circumstances, we've done the right things, supplying medical assistance to countries that need it, supplying resources to countries in the face of catastrophic events. My only concern is putting soldiers on the ground in the Middle East where there's civil wars taking place. And I don't believe that's the best use of our resources, our military, and certainly from a social aspect, I don't think that it helps our country when we need to be focused on everything that goes on in America. I think that we need stronger border protection here in America to protect Americans. But I don't think it should come at a cost of spending all of our resources overseas when people are starving in this country. Small businesses are, it's getting harder and harder to run a small business each and every day, and government is constantly looking for ways to increase revenue on the backs of the people of the United States. So I believe that some of the aid we've supplied has been sufficient.
Thank you. Mr. Gordon, similar question. What is the most important asset you can bring to the U.S. House of Representatives?
I think it's being a small business owner, somebody that understands how difficult it is to make ends meet, how difficult it is to, raise up your small business when there's so much regulation. Someone that understands, as an insurance agent, obviously understands a lot of the pitfalls of the Affordable Health Care Act. So it's kind of a twofold situation where I understand the regulations, but I also understand, that small businesses are starving. And it's getting more and more difficult each day for them to hire employees. And so they're taking on a lot of that responsibility themselves. And it's just getting very, very difficult for them to succeed in the economy that we have here. And I believe that as someone who doesn't come from a wealthy background or family, family fortune, that I understand that it's very, very hard to start from nothing and work your way up to a point at which you're surviving. It's very hard to be able to afford your mortgages and your car payments and such. And I believe that I bring that.
Mr. Gordon, how would you characterize President Obama's actions relative to the Second Amendment?
Well, I was pretty vocal about talking about his executive orders that stated that there need to be more regulations at gun shows, that for some reason there's a big misconception that criminals are going to gun shows, purchasing, legally purchasing firearms and going out and committing acts of violence. My feeling about it is, and most statistics will tell you, that criminals purchasing firearms are doing so in some backlit alley, purchasing guns from other criminals. Let's not forget that most proprietors at gun shows are legally law-abiding citizens. So I feel that his executive order really didn't address any of the issues out there, like a lot of the mental health issues. And I'm a strong advocate to say that we need a better screening process, but we definitely don't need to impede upon people's ability to be lawful, law-abiding gun owners. And as a gun owner, I just feel that it's just a ridiculous statement to say that, again, law-abiding citizens are purchasing guns at gun shows. Thank you.
Mr. Gordon, can you name any specific tax or fee you would want to repeal?
Oh, well, obviously we've talked a lot about health care. I feel like I've been preaching about that tonight, but I would remove the fee currently established for people who do not sign up for health insurance. I believe it's like $675 right now. That to me is a form of coercion. When you make people do something or impose a fee with something like health care, I think that's a detriment to the people of the United States. We've never been founded as a country of coercion. In fact, we've done just the opposite. We've been founded as a country in which people were able to express their ideas and come together and find realistic solutions. And unfortunately, I believe that that is a huge fee. Looking at now, it's relevant as people are doing their taxes, and many people did not sign up for a healthcare system that does not address many of their ailments and some of their pre-existing issues and things like that, that I believe that right now that's one of the biggest things we could take care of immediately.
Mr. Gordon, what would your top 3 priorities be to best serve the 22nd District?
Well, the first one would be reforming our healthcare system. The second would be creating jobs. And I believe that we can really create jobs here by creating a conducive environment to do so. These oppressive taxes. I actually am very concerned about Ted Cruz's economic plan. It calls for I believe it's 16% flat tax on businesses. Well, that doesn't create any opportunity or likelihood that a business is going to continue to invest in itself and continue to hire more employees and provide more resources to their company. We need to do that. We need to end the red tape through the SBA, the Small Business Association. We need to make banks provide more financial funding to people, not just base them on a credit score or what some of the pitfalls they've had in their past, but really look at the direction in which they're heading for their future and their job creation and their products. And the last one would be infrastructure. I think we need to put money in our crumbling infrastructure.
Mr. Gordon, in your opinion, what federal regulations are the most burdensome to American business, and what should Congress do about them?
Oh, I don't know if it's, well, there's a lot of regulations out there, but I would be more concerned about some of the unfair trade practices. I had an opportunity to work for a local manufacturer outside of Utica. And that manufacturer, that owner of that company was very proud to show his employees from this country his manufacturing facility in China. And what the costs were associated with manufacturing and how they were using the system to benefit not really the employees, but more or less the bottom line for that particular owner. So I believe that unfair trade practices and giving incentives to local manufacturers in this country, giving them subsidies while they're moving their manufacturing operations overseas is detrimental. And it really doesn't help our area, and it certainly doesn't help our country. And we need to find opportunities to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Gordon, do you find any constitutional authority for the federal government to be involved in education at the local level?
Well, we look at some failed policies like No Child Left Behind and how it really had an impact on our education system. And again, as it's been stated, we're talking about the situation with Common Core and how that's relative to being vocal and being a vocal advocate for the system. And I like the ideas that have been expressed by creativity. I believe the only responsibility of the federal government is to look at higher education, but to leave local education to the people that know it best, the people that serve their local communities and are educators within their local school districts. I don't believe that the federal government has a role in local education because of that creativity. And many of our communities are vastly different in rural areas and in metropolitan areas. They're vastly different. And it's up to the educator to make it a seamless process utilizing their experience. I'd like to thank the AFRTC for holding this event tonight. I was driving here from Utica, about an hour and a half, hour and 40-minute drive, and I said to myself, please let there be more than 3 people. Not that 3 people don't talk or 3 people don't make a difference, but I am I'm very surprised and pleasantly surprised that as many of you really do care about what goes on in politics and what goes on in government, because too often people are turning a blind eye to many of the issues that we have in our current state of affairs, whether it be in the state of New York with so much rampant political corruption, or on a national level with so much bought and paid for type politics. I can tell you as someone who, again, didn't come from a wealthy family, who grew up in a gutted mobile home, and has had to work hard through my life. My father was a hard-working mechanic for the City of Utica bus line for over 35 years. And, you know, I've had a lot of trials and tribulations through my life. I've owned small businesses while I was going to college. I currently own a small insurance agency. I own a tavern. I own some real estate. I own my house in South Utica. And it hasn't been an easy path. And I know that most people don't have an easy path. It's the select few who have, you know, been perpetuated to office through having wealthy family members and being a part of an unfair system. I can tell you that I'm going to work very, very hard for you because of my past experience. And I implore all of you to check out my website. Again, it's davegordonforcongress.com to see my platform, my agenda, as well as my past political experience. As a Democrat, I was ranked the #1 conservative out of 29 members on the Oneida County Board of Legislators. And that was because of my fiscal policies and my fiscal, you know, policies that I wanted to put forward. So I appreciate the opportunity tonight. I hope everyone has a good evening. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you for joining me. This is Michael Vasquez with the Binghamton Political Buzz Examiner.com. We are in Vestal, New York tonight with the Americans for the Restoration of the Constitution. They've just finished their candidate night, and I have before me Mr. David Gordon, who's out of Oneida, running for the New York 22nd Congressional race on the Democratic side. We just spent the night evening here with many people in Broome County and surrounded by a lot of your Republican candidates, competitors. How'd that feel, by the way?
Oh, you know, I always welcome the challenge. I think that both parties have some good ideas, and if you can find common ground, which I think we have to in these tough economic times and in these tough social issues that we're faced with here in this country, that I think that finding common ground is more important than, you know, being part of gridlock in Washington. And I think that each side poses a good argument, and then it's picking out the pros and cons of each and, you know, finding common ground.
I know that tonight, and we're going to have video on everything, your full speech, every question asked to you and every answer that you provided. And there were a lot of topics, but of course for everybody, sometimes you have a favorite issue, sometimes there's a subject that you didn't get a chance to say enough of. Was there an issue or a subject that you wanted to address that you couldn't, or that you wanted to go in more depth with?
Well, there's a couple things. One was we touched on the Internal Revenue Service very quickly. And one of the things that I still can understand as a small business owner, as a hardworking person that works every day, is that the IRS has established this system of giving out money. And it doesn't make any sense. And when I say giving out money, what I'm talking about is people paying into the system $2,000 or $3,000 and getting refund checks of $8,000 or $10,000. And I don't think that that is an economic booster for the country. I think that the max that someone should get back from the IRS is what the max that they've paid in, and never subsidized by the Internal Revenue Service or by the federal government itself. And you know, one of the other big issues that we didn't get a chance to talk about was infrastructure. You know, we're faced with multiple millions, if not billions of dollars in infrastructure repair in this country. And I think that after we brought many troops home from the Middle East, after we brought troops home from Iraq and Afghanistan, we should have been focused on our infrastructure, just like we were after World War II. And in doing that, we could have created jobs and made sure that many of our soldiers were taken care of when they got back, that there would be a position available to them, whether it be from an infrastructure standpoint, securing our borders, to, you know, being a part of a lot of the engineering and things that go into infrastructure repair and design. And I think we still have a great opportunity in this country. We have to invest in our infrastructure because it is a matter of national security as well as a matter of job creation, and certainly one of the biggest things that we pay taxes for is, you know, having good roads to travel on and safe bridges and clean drinking water and good sewer movement and stormwater drainage and things like that. And we're starting to see the ramifications of not doing, you know, the upkeep and maintenance. And I think that, you know, my campaign is calling for a significant amount of money to the 22nd Congressional District to do this infrastructure repair.
Okay. Well, these are a lot of topics and it opens up a lot of questions. But that's why we're on the campaign trail. That's why we're having a night's event like tonight with the candidate meet and greet, essentially, and speech. I know that there's still a few people here. I don't want to take you away from
That's
that.
all right.
We do thank you for, of course, speaking with us.
Thank you.
And we're offering this to every one of the candidates. We know that petition season's ongoing as we speak, and people are signing up, signing their names for each candidate. In April, after that season is done, we are going to be doing a second round of interviews with all the candidates, and we would, of course, like to ask and extend the offer to you that
Sure.
in April.
Absolutely.
We can speak again and go into some more detail on some of the things that were discussed tonight, and we come up at that time.
I appreciate that. I think transparency is very important. I think that people need to know where candidates stand, where their platforms are, and some of the ideas they have. And I think it's important for many organizations like yourself to hold these type of forums and these type of events and have these question and answer type sessions and really get to the nit and grit of what candidates are proposing so that people can make sound, practical judgment when they go to vote. So thank you.
With that completely.
Thank you.
And so we want to thank you, David, and we hope, Mr. Gordon, and we want to thank you for that, and we hope that we'll be speaking to you very, very shortly.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.